we've had a black swan event, and that is the FTX collapse. Is your thesis still holding that we're going to hit that, or maybe we're going to go lower?
Yeah, so for the most part, my thesis is pretty much intact. I think there's a huge amount of support around 12 to 13,000, but I do ultimately think we go down, we break 10,000 just for a short amount of time, maybe touching the 9,000 level.
Hey guys, welcome back to Library of Wealth. Today we have Gareth Soloway giving us his price prediction for Bitcoin, as well as an update on the crypto market and what investor sentiment looks like across the board. Shortly after the collapse of FTX, Soloway says there is no good endgame in the market, and in the long term, he does see many economies getting destroyed by what's happening. Bitcoin investors have been increasingly moving their holdings to self-custody solutions at a historic rate of 106,000 Bitcoin per month, following the collapse of the world's second largest crypto exchange. Let's listen to this interview as Soloway gives us his newest price prediction for Bitcoin and where the market is headed in the next few weeks. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy the content we do here on this channel. Let's get right into the video.
One of the interesting research pieces that I did was comparing FTX to the Lehman Brothers collapse in 2008. And what's fascinating about that, and you can see the mirroring, right? You had this major exchange, which in the crypto world is kind of like a big bank. And then you had Lehman Brothers, which was a big bank in 08. It took about 5 to 6 months following Lehman for the markets to actually bottom out. So what that does is it gives us a potential point of where to look for a bottom. And the question is, how much lower does Bitcoin go? And from the Lehman Brothers collapse, when it filed for bankruptcy in 08, it basically caused the S&P to drop about 40 to 50%. Well, if we take 40 to 50% away from the current price, we're down but right around that $9,000 level. So for me, that's kind of isolating. As we get closer, I think that's what we're looking for in terms of a bottom on Bitcoin. I guess there's a positive and a negative, right? The negative is we still have lower to go. The positive is we're actually starting to get close to what I would call a near bottom. And I think that's exciting. You know, if you're someone like me that loves Bitcoin in the future, it's exciting to be like, okay, it's almost done. Yeah, a little bit more pain, and it's going to be rough. There's going to be a lot of people when we get down to 10 or 12 that are going to be panicking, but be calm about it. Make sure that the thesis for Bitcoin is still intact, which to me it is. And therefore you think logically and you're a buyer at those levels.
The contagion of the FTX collapse is still spreading. I mean, we're seeing companies saying, oh boy, we're about to file bankruptcy, or we need a line of credit for $1 billion. Yesterday was Genesis Trading. Today is Digital Currency Group and different folks. Well, same company, but the BlockFi and all these folks.
Yeah, you're 100% right. And so we don't even know all the damage yet. It's just filtering out like you mentioned. And I think you have to keep in mind that a lot of these firms have crypto on their balance sheet. And if they're forced into bankruptcy, they're going to be forced to sell that crypto, and it's going to continue to put pressure. In addition, I think the biggest negative for crypto right now is that after FTX kind of blew up, there's really no big money that's going to feel comfortable going into any cryptocurrencies at this point until we have regulation.
Soloway has picked up on a pattern with the 2018 market for Bitcoin from June to November. He's seeing the exact same early bounces and the flush that saw Bitcoin lose 50% of its value. Soloway says he's expecting more black swan events coming soon that will bring in the final bottom for Bitcoin.
I don't think the stock market has bottomed as well. And if we see more downside in risk assets, then we could also see Bitcoin under pressure. So all these things will push it down. But the question is, at what point does it bottom? And I think the biggest thing is, like, even with me saying 9,000-ish, I'm not waiting for 9,000 to start accumulating. In fact, I've already accumulated a small amount, because if we don't hit 9,000, I don't want to be left holding zero when we start our way back up. So what I'm doing is basically I'm spacing out my buys. Every 3,000 down, I'm just buying the equivalent of like a 1/6 position, equaling a 6/6. And essentially that gives me that ability to dollar cost average in all the way down. Even if it goes to like 5,000, I'll still dollar cost average in down there. So here we have the chart of Bitcoin, right? And what we can see here is that Bitcoin is holding steady, and we can see right here it broke to the downside. And you can see this, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so basically this was a major support line. We had a pivot from June. It connected through here and right here, and we finally broke that. And what we're actually forming, this is called a flag pattern, a bear flag to be exact. And I'll draw it in so those of you that can kind of see. So here's your flagpole, which is a vertical drop. And then essentially you have a move here, and you connect these highs, and you can see how it's like an upside down flag pole, right, with a flag. And so that's known as a bearish pattern, and that usually probabilities dictate that it will break lower. And breaking lower is going to take us down to this pivot from 2019 and then this one from 2020, and that's going to be major support. That's right around that 13,000 area. We should get a bounce, but ultimately I would expect a final flush down. And then we have this long-term trend line, which coordinates with that Lehman Brothers kind of correlation, which is right around $8,000 to $9,000. And that's kind of where I'm looking for Bitcoin to bottom. And what's fascinating about this is if we go down to that $8,000, $9,000 level, it's doing is it's taking us down to the long-term uptrend of Bitcoin, right? From the long-term low here from 2017 before the first big bull market there. And then this one little in here, there's their COVID low. And basically all you're doing is connecting those lines, those points, and you get that target price.
You mentioned that we could see a bounce. When do you think that happens, and what's the trajectory? How high may we go?
Yeah, so I would say in general that if we go, let's say to 12 to 13, I think the bounce would then take us back to that trend line that we just broke. So if we look at the chart again here, what we can see is that basically this line now becomes a major resistance. So when you break support, it becomes resistance. And especially a line like this that we were bobbing up against for such a long time, it breaks to the downside. So let's say we go to 12 to 13, we go down in this range here, you would expect a snapback back to that line, which is around 18.5. So I think, in all fairness, that's, what is that? Almost a 50% move off 12,000. So it's worth trading. Like I'll be swing trading it, but I probably won't be, jumping in heavily on the long side for longer than a swing trade at that point.
And for Ethereum, are you seeing a similar pattern since all coins for the most part follow Bitcoin?
Yeah, so what we see here is there was this wedge pattern here, and we can connect the highs going all the way back to the Ethereum all-time high. Here's this pivot point here and this pivot point here. And then you could connect the lows, which mimic kind of the Bitcoin channel that it was creating. And it creates this bigger wedge pattern. And what we could see here is that Ethereum broke to the downside. It retraced, tested that line, and has been fading since. So I would kind of be in that same camp of saying, okay, unless we somehow recapture this area and get back above it, you have to favor the downside on Ethereum. So we're looking at potentially retesting that 900-ish area, which was the low on Ethereum. If Bitcoin really goes to 9,000 or even 10,000, you got to imagine Ethereum's down at 600, if not even a little bit lower. But same kind of feeling with Bitcoin is that, once you get down sub 1,000, I think you're playing with the house's money as you accumulate. Obviously dollar cost average in, but if you ask me which are the safe cryptos to invest in for the longer term, there's only two of them, Ethereum and Bitcoin.
Soloway is amazed that Bitcoin hasn't conveyed more strength in the market. This is because Bitcoin usually does the risk minimum at least 2 times when the stock market rallies. Soloway believes that it's important to recognize that the current long-term pattern is very bearish. He sees that Bitcoin has the ability to go down significantly in the next 30 days. According to Soloway, when the market declines, the Nasdaq is truly beginning to implode, which will actually support Bitcoin. He believes the top 50 coins with legitimate use cases should survive, with the majority of currencies being destroyed. And since we are in a recession and inflation can only be reduced by around 6%, the Fed is unable to simply print more money, which would lead to the next leg of market declines. What do you guys think about Gareth Soloway's prediction for Bitcoin and the impact that the fall of FTX is having on the current market? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. This is Library of Wealth. We'll see you in the next video.